But I just remembered something. Going back to when I started, when I was a little guy starting school at 5, my brother was already graduated. He was 17. He was much older. So he had been out, he graduated early, and he was out in the world. So when I started at 5, he took me aside, and this is what he told me. He said, you're going to start, I was a little guy, he said, you're going to start school now. And I just want you to remember this. The teachers, the ladies who are going to tell you what to do, they're not bad people. They're not bad people. They're good people. They're just not very smart. So just don't get upset or angry at them, and just do what they tell you. And if you do what they tell you, they call that cooperation. And they're going to give you this report card to bring home to Mama, and it's going to say, I was 5 years old. So he said, they're not mean, they're just stupid. So don't get upset.
That's funny.
And that was my advice when I went off to school, and it served me in good stead. It served me in good stead. Till about 6th grade. When I was in 6th grade, the teacher went to the principal and she said, him or me. She really meant he or I, but she said him or me. And so I wasn't allowed to set foot in her class for the whole 6th grade. And I had to sit outside. I didn't tell my mother or anything. I became the messenger for the principal. He would send me to buy groceries or whatever he wanted done. I was like the school messenger. But I never set foot in a classroom for the whole 6th grade because
there was no other sixth-grade teacher.
That's right. Well, there were others, but they had you grouped. 6-1 was for the bright kids, 6-2 was for the average, 6-3, and they went all the way to 6-8. So the way they did in New York, when it's at 6th grade, you knew how smart the kid was, whether your kid was in 6-1 or 6-5, you see. I was in 6-1, but I knew all the answers, see, and the teacher didn't want me around. I was a real pain in the butt. So I spent that, and I learned so much in 6th grade by not having to go to her class because I was on the bench outside the principal's office, and I was able to do all these things. You know, I learned how school worked and everything. And my partner on the bench was a little kid named Vincent Mosseroffo. Vincent Mosseroffo was an Italian kid. Sounds Japanese, but his name was Mosseroffo, Mossoroffo. And he was kicked out they didn't have special ed in those days. In those days it was called the opportunity class. And the opportunity class had all the kids and this is New York City, right? They had the kids who had some kind of emotional or mental, but they also had the physically handicapped. And poor Vincent had been burned in a fire. He had scars all over his face. And there was nothing wrong with him except he was very disfigured, and he was kind of angry about it, you know? So they put him in the opportunity class. But the teacher of the opportunity didn't like him, so she kicked him out. So Vincent and I sat on this bench talking to each other all day and doing whatever. There were always errands and stuff.
Had great opportunities.
We had great. Oh, one of the things we did. We didn't. They didn't have enough people working then. The bureaucracy was not enough. At about 11 o'clock every day, Vincent and I would go set up the lunchroom. It was a big area used like a play area indoors, and we would set up all the tables and chairs for lunch. And then when they had their lunches all done at about 1, Vincent and I would go and take down all the tables and stack them up. So we had a job. We had a job to do. And I always remember this kid. He was a bright kid and a good kid, and he was kicked out of opportunity class. Years later, when I had graduated and I was living in Greenwich Village, I was already married. I was in my early 20s. One time, I was walking across the street under the West Side Highway on the west side of Manhattan near the Hudson River. And if you know Manhattan, it's very difficult to drive huge trailer trucks through Manhattan. And here came this huge trailer truck, and it suddenly stopped, and coming down out of this huge cab backed up traffic in all directions on the west side. There was a ramp to the west side highway. Here's Vincent Mosseroffo as a young man, and we recognize each other. Hey, what are you doing? How are you? And he had a cap with a little pencil, and he had a bunch of bills of lading on him, and it was a Pepsi-Cola truck or a Coca-Cola truck. He had a really responsible job. He was driving an awful lot of equipment through a very crowded area of Manhattan, and he was making all kinds of, and here they had him in the opportunity class, you know. He was a Teamster now, and he was earning a good living. He was earning 3 times of what I was making. And I said to myself, I always remember that, here's the kid that they thought wasn't going to be anything, and he has this responsible job, earning all this money, and he's doing it in Manhattan, in one of the worst traffic areas, and that had a big imprint on me too.
He made his way.
He made his way.